Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it is Transformation Tuesday over at Loving Me Before I Love You, the podcast where we stop performing, start healing, and choose ourselves on purpose. Hi, my name is Coach Tammy Nicole. I help women reclaim their voice, their worth, and their power so that they can stand in clarity, confidence, and courage. And today, we're talking about this one question. And before I read it, I want you to think about it wholeheartedly. Are you truly free, or are you just comfortable? See, freedom, that's the word we throw around a lot. We say we want freedom all of the time. It's like, hey, let me be able to just do what I want to do, how I want to do it. The word itself feels foreign to most of us. We say we want freedom in our relationships, freedom in our healing, freedom in our finances, freedom in our minds. But tonight, I want to ask something really real that may also sound really simple. Are you actually free? No matter how much you really want it, are you actually living in it? Or have you simply mastered survival inside of your comfort zone? Because there is a difference. Comfort can look like staying in a relationship that no longer fulfills you or serves you, because it's like we're familiar. Why not stay? Like, why should I go somewhere else? Comfort can look like shrinking to avoid conflict. Comfort can also look like, I'm going to call it exhaustion when actually it's responsibility. And comfort can look like being the strong friend, the dependable mom, the high achiever, the woman who keeps everything together while quietly falling apart behind closed doors. So the dangerous thing about comfort is that it doesn't always feel painful. And I mean, it doesn't always feel painful enough to leave. It just hurts a little bit, and then we adjust. So sometimes comfort becomes the beautifully decorated prison. Predictable, safe, manageable, but still limiting. So freedom requires something different. Freedom requires truth. It requires choice. It requires the courage to disappoint the version of you that learned how to survive just to become the version of you that finally gets to live. See, freedom is being able to say no without guilt. Freedom is resting without needing to earn it. Freedom is not abandoning yourself just because someone else is uncomfortable with your boundaries. Freedom is being fully honest and about who you are and what you desire and what you no longer align with. So it may be the hardest thing for you to actually do, and it may be the hardest truth to actually face, because some of us are not afraid of failure. We are afraid of what life would require from us if we actually became free. So in today's conversation, we're going to challenge you just a little bit, because too many of us have gotten comfortable. It's going to make you look at your patterns, your routines, your relationships, and maybe even the identity you've built around survival. You know, I don't do an episode by myself. I always have a guest. It's always fun to bounce these ideas and dialogues off of someone, because my version of what I think is not the Bible, but is definitely a great perspective. So today I have joining me, her name is Gabriela Rojas, and she is the founder of the You in Progress. What that mean? You ain't there yet. So she want to help you continue to make your way. So we're going to dive in deep to this conversation, and we're going to help you evolve and choose yourself and stop confusing familiarity with fulfillment. So grab your journal, lean in, and ask yourself honestly, am I truly free, or have I just become comfortable in the life that I settled for? Welcome to the show, Gabriela. How are you?
Thank you. Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me. And what a beautiful introduction. You really had me thinking there. I'm like, honestly, yes, 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 and yes. So thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Today has been a day,
Mm,
but
mm.
I'm going to make it. I'm going to push through. I am very excited to have this conversation because for me, when I really think about the question, I
Hmm.
think too many often get into a space of, hmm, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want to go. I can live the way I want to live. And it's actually comfort because we're still bound mentally by the thoughts of, am I doing this for other people? Like, what will so and so say? How will so and so respond or react? And so that's not necessarily freedom. That is comfort dressed up in a little outfit that says you're doing what you want, but at the thought of the people actually agreeing with you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's, comfort and safety are not the same thing, right? And so a lot of the time we find that the option that we're more familiar with or that we feel safer in, or even sometimes that our nervous system may be used to is the best thing. And oftentimes, especially in the inner work and the inner alchemy and the inner, generational healing and all of it, all the words, often you stay in discomfort for a very long time. You stay in stepping out of the loop, the cycle. When we think about a loop or a cycle or a pattern, if you're walking the grass in a circle for, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, it's going to be patted down quite a bit, right? But the second you step out of that circle, step out of that cycle, you're in new grass. It's uncharted territory for you. And oftentimes we have, our own human design that says, no, this is unsafe because it's uncomfortable, because it's unknown, and because we're uncertain about it, it means that it's dangerous and we shouldn't be in there. Where quite in fact, when we are stepping out of patterns and cycles and loops, it's a beautiful sign where you don't know where you're going and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're feeling uncertain. That means that you've stepped out of it, right? So it can be a really, really tough trap when you're doing that inner work. And especially a lot of us are doing it solo. A lot of us are the first ones in our family doing it. So it's so important that we have a little bit of, these conversations that you're having right now of what does it feel like to step out of your comfort zone? What does it feel like? What does the brain tell you? What's the narrative telling you when you are stepping out of that? And how beautiful it is that you do feel uncomfortable. So that's what I would say first and foremost for really what it means to me and what it represents to me in kind of that way.
Awesome. So my next question would be the comforts, you saying stepping out of the comfort zone and being free and knowing that it feels uncomfortable is the first sign that says that you're doing something different and could be on the right path to a better you. My question to you would be, when a person makes a decision to step outside and do something different, how long or what are the signs that they should be watching that says, you know what, you're going to create a new normal, a new sense of comfort that's actually healthier than the one you're leaving?
Sure, sure. That's a beautiful question. As a coach that works specifically with women and people in general in what I'd like to call the shadow work, right? I work in the shadows all the time with folks. And there is a bit of I like to believe, an intelligent divine design in the time, right? So sometimes what I call it, what many people call dark night of the soul may last for a long period of time. You may find it to be endless, a month, 2 months. Sometimes it's a long weekend. And so my kind of philosophy around that is to allow it to happen naturally at its pace. A lot of the time we want to put a time constraint because it's so uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to be in this unknown. I don't want to be going through an identity death. Like, this is not what I don't have time for this. However, the process of it unfolds so intelligently. And especially as women, our superpower is to surrender. Our superpower is to trust the process and to intuitively really just reconnect with ourselves and remind ourselves that we're good, we're safe, we're cared for. Actually, this is in the highest good for who we're becoming. But it can be quite tough to actually be present during these big changes. So I know a big change, especially you're going to feel at first, I like to put it like a very much a metamorphosis kind of trajectory onto it, right? And so I don't study like insects or anything. So if anybody listening studies that, I'm so sorry if I offend you with like the terminology, because it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah. So essentially, we have this chubby little, caterpillar, right? And so one day this chubby little caterpillar is like, I think I got to wrap myself up real tight. And I don't know for how long, but I think I got to wrap myself up because I know I'm going to live a different life after this. However, when you feel that call for change, you answer it, right? You don't ask questions and then follow. You ask questions later and you follow now, especially when it's so intuitive and just you feel so drawn to it. So that's, for me, that's the first sign of I'm entering a metamorphosis. There's a change, there's a shift that's calling. It doesn't feel comfortable, but I feel like it is a calling. So we go into this cocoon, right? And we become essentially like putty or like whatever it is, like a very slimy thing they become in there, right? They don't know how long they're going to be in there. They're kind of surrendered, hanging from like somebody's roof shingle or whatever, a tree, and just hoping for the best, hoping they don't get eaten, hoping that they're going to make it out alive.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, after all of that pressure and darkness and goo and liminal period, which I believe the liminal period is between identities, right? So the identity you are now and the identity you're becoming, there's like a period of just purgatory you're in, right? So in that liminal period of nothing, trusting that everything is lining up. So once the soon-to-be butterfly begins to see that little first crack of light in its cocoon, begins to open its cocoon, begins to really like shrug their shoulders, feeling the wings on there, and realize that not only is it a different being, but it now can go to a different perspective where he could only really just like inch up here and there. Now he can fly above the trees. Now he's seen for his essence and his beauty and whatever it is, but having trusted that process. And so I always ask my clients and the folks that I work with, like, just trust every process, trust every, almost validate. Sometimes we wait for the reel or the Instagram post to validate how we're feeling, or the podcast to validate how we're feeling. And eventually we can cut that middleman out and say, you know what? Yes, this is normal. You know what? Yes, like I'm feeling this way. You know what? Yes, I'm feeling extremely intense or emotionally overloaded, or my nervous system feels like it's on fire. There is something that is going on within me that is changing me to a cellular level. Can I allow that to happen? And so kind of going back to your question, what should people see and the time? And it's really allowing things to happen, especially the first time you walk into a big identity shift. Your body is going to say, no, we're not going to do this. Just like skydiving, your body is going to be like, nope, we're not jumping out of this plane. This is super crazy. Why are you doing this? Then once you do it again and again and again, you start to say, well, yeah, I survived that. Okay. So the next time it comes in the identity shift, okay, I survived that. Okay. So, and sometimes it gets shorter. So, at first when people are doing this work and it's kind of, they're a little bit newbie at it, allowing it to happen. It might take longer than you expect. It might take much shorter than you expect, but validate, normalize, and allow. That's what I would say is like number one in the whole process.
I agree. I think a lot of times, though, you mentioned something in the beginning saying that it is a woman's like superpower to be intuitive, right? To kind of know that she's in need of a change or what have you. But there are a lot of women that don't know, right? There are a lot of women who were never taught what their intuitive nature really is because we're not taught on the feminine side a lot. Because intuitivity is more of the feminine energy that we have that we're supposed to operate in. But we tend to, and I'm saying we, there are some of us that are not taught about our feminine energy in a way that will teach us or open up the spectrum for us to kind of like dive in from an intuitive space, right? I love that you mentioned the butterfly because that is my theme in life is that, you know, we're caterpillars that grow into butterflies, but there are some of us that turn into moths. And we turn into moths because we do what? We hijack the process. Moths don't become butterflies because they interrupt the changes. They do things their way versus allowing things to kind of happen the way that they're supposed to. And some of us are moths and we, you know, it is what it is. We still flying. That's the way I like to look at it. We may not be colorful and beautiful with all the different arrays of color, but we still flying. We still look the same. Our wings are still shaped the same way. They still have the same power. So that just means we went through a different path. But when we talk about freedom and comfort, as a moth, don't get too comfortable. You know, you want to still fly high. Don't always fly into spaces where you get into things that kind of camouflage. Butterflies don't camouflage, they stand out. Moths camouflage. They match with the tree. They match with the wall. You know, they try to find their ways to hide. And so when you talk about the difference between freedom and comfort, I will say comfort is moth lifestyle and freedom is butterfly.
Mm. That's really interesting. And the thing is, like, I'm like a big animal lover, like from a little spider to like a big elephant. So I'm like, they're cute too, like the moths. But it's so true. They do camouflage. One thing though, the moth will always find the light, right? So it could be like, it can see light from miles and miles and miles away, and you'll always find the light. So for those who are like, oh shit, like, am I a moth? Am I like, so you'll always find the light. You'll always find your way home. But it is like there is especially many of us women, you know, have found ourselves in very masculine energies. And that's, you know, not by mistake. We're designed for like we're conditioned to believe that, you know, hustle and grind and like that's the way that you're going to have an earning, right? And so that is a very masculine oriented and masculine rewarded way of life. And, you know, yeah, it can be tough as someone who, you know, was in I live in New York City, and, you know, the hustle culture and women, like we are the creme de la creme of being in our masculine energy. And so it can be very confusing to connect back into your feminine, to connect back into your intuitive, trusting nature. But I really like to remind folks that life is, you know, rememberings and forgettings and rememberings and forgettings. And when we are reconnecting back with ourselves, I want people to realize that you're remembering yourself, right? You're not learning yourself. You're not installing something new. You were innately born, you know, with feminine and masculine energies within you, a yin and a yang. And so as you unbecome everything that you're not in this process, you then become, or you are who you are naturally, your essence, your radiance, your magnetism, like what you were put on this earth to, you know, share with humanity. So but it can be really tough. But my big, huge proponent is that you have everything it is that you need in this lifetime. And I swear you've left breadcrumbs in this lifetime, or little tiramisu crumbs, whatever you're into. Me, I love a good tiramisu. You left little crumbs in this lifetime to get you to where you're going, right? And so just like if I'm driving from New York to Miami, I don't need to see the whole way on 95 from here to there. No, I need to see, whatever my high beams will let me see, 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever the high beams do. Right. And that's the only responsibility you have, is for what you can see at this moment. It is not for what's unfolding in front of you. It's what you can see. And when you have that trust and that kind of just a bit of a chill pill with that, knowing that, listen, I know that it's going to work out bigger than my highest imagination. My only responsibility is the next 6 feet, not the next 12, the next 6. And you will see that you are way more equipped, with wisdom, with generational wisdom that's been passed down to you to get you back to yourself in this life, and to get you, to where you need to go as well. So, but it can be really, really tough, for women who have not either, like you said, been exposed to the idea of a feminine nature. Many of us, I know myself, I was raised by a single mom, and she had to be the man and the woman of the house. She had to be, the good cop, the bad cop, everything in between. But that type of responsibility, as everybody, many of us know, does not necessarily, as you're growing up, you don't see where the feminine is. You just see your mom doing 5 different, part-time jobs, getting this, getting that, bringing you to karate, doing this, being stressed, not taking care of herself well. Like, that's what you see, right? So it's very common for us to grow up in units and households and communities where women are in their hypermasculine because they have to be. And how do you then learn how to tap into your feminine? It can be really, really tough. So, as long as you can allow the first 6 feet to unfold and not be the moth and be like, no, I want 12 feet. I want 20 feet. No, I want to do it my way or the highway. Right. And those 6 feet, they look like joining a women's group. They look like getting a self-help book. They look like going to a seminar. They look like subscribing to a podcast, right? It's not this big, like, going back to school or going to a spiritual retreat or whatever.
Hey, hope you're feeling the love in today's episode. We'll pick back up where we left off in a moment. First, we're excited to share that Tammy has a collection of self-love t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and journals for you to express how much you love yourself to the world. From comfy hoodies to motivational mugs, there's something for everyone. While you're listening to today's show, feel free to browse the full collection at IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
It's not a big thing. It's just the first step. And that first step will lead to a second step and lead to a third step. And before you know it, you're like, I don't even recognize my old nervous system. So that's for me what it becomes when women are very nervous about, like, how am I gonna reconnect with myself? I don't even know what that means. Just take the first step. Don't see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Period.
Absolutely. That's definitely the most important thing to do, is taking step 1. I also do believe, though, that we can be in a masculine world and in the masculine space and still operate from a feminine perspective. We're not necessarily taught that, but you can do it and technically should do it. As a business owner, as a boss, as a leader in any organization, you can still operate with authority and feminine energy. You do not have to turn on the masculine side of you to say, I'm in this role or in this position to, like, in order to, like, control it all, in order to, like, create and demand respect, or, putting yourself in a position that says, you know what, if I don't turn my masculine on, they're not going to listen to me. They will, because it's the feminine energy that actually draws people in. It's the feminine energy that actually says, you know what, she know what she's talking about. She know what she's doing. She's, walking with authority. You can walk with authority in feminine. You do not have to do it in a masculine way. The other thing, though, I feel like when we're talking about freedom versus comfort, it's when you get into a space of being free, it is a space of fresh air. It's a space of lightness, no heaviness. It is even when things are going wrong, you still feel light. You don't feel burdened down because you have become free in your decisions. You've become free in how you move, so that it's clarity. It's not just, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and, my kids need X, Y, and Z. And then, the job is doing X, Y, and Z, and you're feeling so overwhelmed, so burnt out, so, out of control, but you're in survival mode. So you're comfortable. You're in survival mode. So you're in a space of, I've been here before, done that before. I've seen this before. I can handle this before. But that's not freedom. And it's survival, and we should not be surviving. We should be thriving. And I think that we have made survival such a normalcy that we think that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's, you get to a point, especially, with our nervous system is such a guide to us. And you get to a point where you normalize the distress and the dis-ease, right? I love to use the dis-ease because we know the word disease. And then if you put a hyphen between dis and ease, you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So our, nervous system will tell us what's going on. A lot of the time as well, our subconscious will also tell us what's going on. I know for myself, I've really been in a healing kind of aha meets dark night of the soul when it comes to my programming trying to prove that certain beliefs exist. And let's say it's a belief of like, I'm not loved or something. So my programming will point out that I'm not loved, either by it's the guy that doesn't let me walk by in the crosswalk and drives through, if it's I'm dating someone, if it's the person at the supermarket, in my yoga class, whatever it is, right? I will read every small nuance to prove to myself that I am actually not that valued, right? And so something like that, which if we're constantly trying to subconsciously prove that a belief exists, it will eventually materialize. We are super energetic beings and we materialize our life in many ways. So the inability, let's say for me to be able to identify or sit with that or, really respect that in my life, I know has been an invisible chain, right? Because you're really only going to be in certain parameters and not everybody's necessarily going to be, if somebody's saying, I really value your presence here. I really value your presence here. And you're like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Eventually you're going to get very tired of someone arguing with you that you don't value their presence. And eventually you won't value their presence. You're going to have a bit of indifference. You're going to have a bit of distance, coldness, whatever it is. And so things like that, when we're talking about freedom and then, okay, great, I'm going to free myself. How do I free myself? A lot of it is the programming, is the subconscious that it's like a computer, right? It's not that it's like ingrained and you're born like this. No, like we are the programmer and we are also the one being programmed. So if it is a condition, if it is a program, that's up to you then to begin to uncode or recode or whatever. For those who had like MySpace, we used to be little coders with our flames. But, for you to redo the system, and it will take some time and it will take some, feeling that you're going crazy because you're literally breaking apart or dissolving a way of life that you've had, how you've engaged in your life. And it's going to try to test you and be like, girl, are you sure? Like, I don't think you're right about this. Just stay status quo for a bit, right? So it's going to be a process that isn't going to be smooth and like, oh my gosh, we're just meditating here. You're going to be crying at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. You're going to be you're going to be questioning. You're going to be dissociating from, from life sometimes, or from distancing yourself, becoming a hermit. You're going to go through all of the 50 shades of identity death. So it becomes, when we're really talking about freedom, and then we're talking about comfort. What is freedom? It is changing how you have been functioning, because that in its way, when you, what was the quote? When you change how you see, the things you see change, and something along that line, right? And so it's true. So, but it begins in, you got to change how you're perceiving, what's the lens that's entering through your body and how you're consuming life, in order for you to then be able to see a different, projection of life out there for you. So that's like, for me, that's like the number one definition of freedom, or at least an act of freedom, is to really, truly know that you have always had the capacity and the power and the hype to be able to reprogram how you engage and how you process life. So that's my like definition of freedom in all of this.
I agree, but I also think that freedom is just your ability to simply be, right? But be in a space that you love and accept and enjoy. You're not in a space of being that's people pleasing to other people, like doing it because they want you to. It's doing it because this is what resonates with me. And so many of us have been doing life based upon what other people wanted. You have something going on and you go ask your homegirl, you're like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. I think I want to do X, Y, and Z. And if it doesn't resonate with her based upon how she sees things, then she says to you, oh, I don't think I would do that. Or she says, oh, that sounds good, but what about doing it this way? Doing it a way that she thinks is more feasible. If you don't have freedom in yourself to be able to stand on the idea and the thought that you created for yourself, the idea and the mission that you have for your own business, dream, your vision, if you can't stand in it, then you're moving out of comfort, because you are doing things that feel right amongst the people that you feel close to. And you want a freedom that gives you the space to just simply be. So I agree with you that the nervous system has a lot to do with it, and that you should feel free to reinvent yourself anytime you feel like it. It should not be something that is just done once, twice, major life transitions like marriage, divorce, kids, new job, new career, industry, all those things. All those things a lot of times will make you actually revisit your place of being and how are you maneuvering and getting along. But they should not just be the only indicator that it's time to do some, deep diving, revamping, etc. Monitor your patterns. Monitor the things that show up all the time. I 100% agree with you that you create your life, right? I always say this, and I say this to all of my clients. If you want to know why your life exists the way it does, sit down one day and just think about your thoughts, think about your conversations, and think about what you're doing. When you take all three of those things and put them into one pile, they will give you the life you're living. So if you want something different, you got to start thinking different. You got to start hanging with different people, and you got to start talking about different things.
Exactly. Our perception creates our reality in so many ways. And when you mentioned like being, we are not human doings. We are human beings. And we've been told so many times that just being, like, that's not good enough. Like, how dare you just be? How dare you just, think that you're good enough by the brain on your shoulders and your intuition and you're this and you're that? Like, how dare you think that? And so at the end of the day, though, especially when you have that nudge that you want to open that business, that whatever it is, you will always find, I find, like, especially in this work, you will always find the reflection of your inner world. And so when you mention that, like, you want to open a business, you go to your homegirl, you're like, hey, what do you think? Like, I don't know. What do you think? You're going to find somebody else's hesitance too, and their lack of confidence and their, dis-ease within them, right? Instead of, let's say you have that idea, you go to a group and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this hair business. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on TikTok. I'm going to buy all these things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I can sell them for double. This is what I'm going to do. Guess what? You're going to be in rooms of opportunity and with other people. You're going to say, yes, girl. Yes, girl. And then you're going to do this. And then you're going to do that. And then you're going to sell it in this. And you're going to have people who are hyping you after hype and celebrating you. And then on top of that, they're going to say, you know what? I'm going to speak your name in a room of opportunity next time I see you. Right. So you will always meet your mirror in a lot of these ways. Relationships, you'll always meet your mirror. You'll always be able to really see where you're at sometimes by the vibe, the crew that you have around you and how they respond to. So I'm a big proponent of that as well. And as well in this, like, triggers, right? We haven't mentioned triggers. Huge. I find that triggers truly show us what lives within, right? A lot of the time we can put the blame on somebody else for, what comes up within us. Sure, yes, they plucked the string of that guitar, but if the string did not exist, it wouldn't be there to be plucked, right? And so a lot of the time when we're growing and we're stepping out of our comfort zone and we're going for things that truly that we know that is in alignment and we were always destined to do. I say, like, be careful what you pray for, right? Because if let's say I'm running, I hope to run for office in the next few years. And my end goal in the political space is to become a US Senator. Since I was the fourth grade, I wrote in my diary, Senator Rojas, like, even have it on my phone, Senator Rojas. Great. Beautiful. Now, when you pray for something, when you pray for a version of yourself or a goal, yes, you will get to where you're going, but it's not going to be in what you want. And especially if I want to become a US Senator, I can't be a version of myself that is, my nervous system is super unregulated, that my focus is everywhere and scattered, that I siphon energy or I leak energy everywhere, that I don't listen, or that I think I know it all, or whatever it is, right? So you will have to eventually, have your changes and shifts and reinventions of identity. You have to, in order to become that enlightened individual, you have to lighten up. And when you mentioned the, reinvention of yourself, I thought, like, the pictures that they used to take of us, like in elementary school or whatever, if you look at, like, your third grade picture, fourth grade picture, you were always reinventing yourself. You had a new hand, this, that, right? You had a different look every year, right? So, like, if we were doing that in elementary school, in high school, why do you think that should change now, right? Like evolution has always been in our design, and you could see it from when you were young, So, like, it doesn't stop because we're adults and we have a different, structure around us. No, we are human first. All right. We're living a human experience here. So, like, being able to allow yourself to shift and move and groove and live 50 lifetimes in 80 years is the whole point, right? It's not to stay in the same stagnant box. Like, you weren't designed to be a small thing. You were designed to take up space and grow and be seen and loved. So when you said that, I was like, you know what? Like, one year I had Harry Potter glasses. The next year I had this. Next year I had that. Like, you were always looking different in those pictures. And like, why should that change now? Because like I don't know, you have an income bracket, you have file your IRS taxes, whatever, you have a kid. Like, why would that change now? So that kind of, thank you for saying that. Cause I'm like, you know what? We have been reinventing ourselves for a minute. Like, why did we stop? No way. No way.
I think we stopped because we felt like childhood is over. And too many of us have left it behind when it should always come with you because it's a part of you, right? It created the essence of you that you are today. But we feel like we put away childish things. We just do everything from an adult perspective. And I think you lose the essence of yourself when you do that. You should still be having fun. You should still be going in places that you enjoyed as a kid, be it roller skating, bowling, puzzles, coloring books. I love adult coloring, and I say it adult coloring because it's like get your phone and it's digital and, I'm matching numbers with the things. It may not be full crayon, but put me in a place where I don't have electronics and I'm getting them crayons, the color pencils, the markers, and that full coloring book because I enjoy it. It puts me in a place of solitude and serene and being able to just be, think, clarity, or not think at all. Like it gives me that sense of peace. And so I just think that in general, we need to stop letting go of the evolution. We are always evolving. As you mentioned, when you're a kid, it changes. You change. And I think if you're the same person today that you were in 2025 on this day, we have a problem. And the problem is not like the things around you. The problem becomes you because you're not allowing the things that are happening around you to actually cause you to do something different, cause you to want to change, cause you to want to think differently, cause you to want to move in a different way. The things around you that are happening, they happen for a reason. And if the same thing keeps happening, it's because you're not learning. It's because you're not changing. You should get a different lesson every time. But if you keep taking that same test over because you can't pass it, because you're not allowing yourself to grow, you need to stop, think, reflect, and go, oh, maybe I'm not free. Maybe I'm just comfortable because this is familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely, it definitely, when I think, even when you said 2025, I'm like, yeah, like what was I doing in 2025? And I'm fortunate to have allowed life to, like, if it needs to knock me down, to humble me for a second, like I'm cool with that. But it can be tough, like when we do not allow life to do what it needs to do for us. And it's always for us. Sorry, my cat is also like, amen, like, amen. So, it really, truly, we have an obligation, to become who it is that we were meant to become and allow whatever your journey is to allow that. And if it's not, for yourself, it's for all of the people that came before you, all of the women, that in your lineage that never had that opportunity, that never had that podcast, that never had that reel on Instagram reminding them of who they are. You have the privilege now to step up in a way in your life that many people have not, and everybody that came before you. And yes, it's not going to be, sexy. And yes, it's not going to be easy. And yes, sometimes you are going to have years that, or years or whatever, that you really feel so lost in your own sauce. But to always remind yourself that that is the point, that, when you're working out, when you're lifting weights, everything like that, and you feel like, your butt is hurting because you're doing so many squats, like, but that that's part of it. And so when you know that that's part of it, you begin to embrace that. You begin to embrace the soreness. You begin to take your magnesium and do your Epsom salt baths and care for yourself, because you understand that that fatigue is part of the whole process. And as much as that that trust and that surrender, your return and investment is exponential. So, but it's a you versus you, but it's also you for you in this whole time. And if we really can remember that, even in the toughest, darkest, most confusing hours, I promise every woman, every person listening to this today is going to get to where they need to go in this lifetime. And it's going to be whatever you came into this life to become, or to show humanity or to give. Like, we need you right now more than ever, so I promise you will get to where you're going, and more and more.
Tell the people where they can find you if they wanted to continue to just learn how to do the you in progress.
Yes, thank you. So I'm online on all social platforms at the You in Progress, so YOU in Progress. And I created that because I have a little podcast as well. I haven't recorded anything recently, but at the time I was like, you know what? I want a podcast that talks about the journey. And I couldn't find one for the love of me. Like, I couldn't find one. And I'm sure they're out there, but at the time I couldn't. And it was just about manifestation and this and that and like 7 figures, but nothing about like, yeah, girl, like, this is what I'm going through. Yeah, girl, watch me trip, like, for the 8th time and fall on my face. Nothing normalized what we go through behind closed doors. And when we are in that closet in the dark and we turn on a little light bulb, we're going to realize that there's 50 other thousand people in that same closet experiencing similar things to us. So that's the purpose of my coaching practice, is to normalize the experience. We walk in the shadows together, and we're able to do a lot of inner alchemy and inner changing, and to be able for you to be that free self that we've been talking about, for the past hour, 40 minutes or so. So that's the point of the whole thing, is for you to be free and to you to live a life that's really sovereign and really in tune with you and at more ease. Life should not be this struggle bus. It was not designed to be that way, and it was not designed to suffer. And so the idea is for you to heal, not so you can not feel discomfort anymore, because we just talked about discomfort. You're going to feel it. It's part of life, human experience. But for you not to be at war with yourself anymore. That is the point. If you're not in conflict and resistance with yourself, baby, you're going to go 50 times faster, 50 times further. So that's what I do. You can find me at the You in Progress, and just DM me. You can book a call and we can have a consult.
Awesome. So as we close this conversation, I just want you guys to sit with this one question tonight. What part of your life have you been calling peace when it's really just familiarity? Because we know freedom is not just leaving toxic people. Freedom is leaving behind the version of yourself that keeps abandoning you. It is choosing yourself consistently, daily. It is telling the truth about what you feel, and it is creating a life that actually reflects your worth instead of just your words. So, are you healing? Because healing is not always loud. Sometimes healing is simply the moment you stop settling for a life that no longer fits who you're becoming. I want to say thank you so much, Gabriela, for coming and joining with me in this conversation. It has been a pleasure. I want you to remember that you can go find her at the You in Progress on all of her social platforms. And for the woman that's listening right now, if this episode actually spoke to you, if you feel like you deep down inside, like, oh man, they was walking on my street, stepping on my toes, knocking at my door, I want you to do the work. And I also want you to remember that I'm here to help you as well. Okay. I help you reclaim your voice. I help you reclaim your worth, and I help you walk into your power so that you're able to have clarity, to have confidence and courage. Remember, you can always send me a message on coaching@IamTammyNicole.com, and love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. Have a good night.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.